So welcome again, everybody. And yeah, looking back at this year, I think, as everyone has mentioned, it's been a very productive year. Lots of very, very interesting topics. I was going through all the adverts this morning and remembering the accountability mechanisms, the power of self-identity in sustainable livelihoods, looking at the effect of artificial intelligence in the community development field, community wealth building, change through the cultural approach to community development. Very interesting one on community entry, how one works at getting into a community. And then I did a panel on ABCD in October with some of my colleagues. And I'm sure there's some that I've missed out there, but I think that just gives us an idea of the wide scope of different topics and the different assets and skills that we have in this continent that I think we can be very, very proud of. And John's excellent one on the children, working with children and child abuse and so on, that was also very, very interesting. So we really have a wealth of resources and talents and topics and experience in this continent. And I think that's what makes these series of webinars so interesting. And again, I want to commend Daniel for his amazing skills in planning everything and putting it all together and chasing people to get a topic for each month. I'm sure it's not easy with his busy work, but it's fantastic to always look forward to what's coming up next. So thank you to all those who are involved in running webinars. And then also we're looking forward to seeing some more interesting topics for next year. And I think if we look back to what we covered last year, when we did the same sort of open forum on the 13th of December last year, we said that for our region, we want to try and promote IACD as far as possible and promote membership and also promote the discipline and practice of community development, networking with members within and across the region, holding masterclasses on a few topical issues, which we did, practice exchanges. I'm not sure whether we managed any of those this year, but building partnerships with academic institutions and so on. So I think we had quite a lot of different and interesting action plans for this year. And we were just hearing from Jessica before we opened up the session that we are now sitting at about 200 members in the Sub-Saharan African area, out of a total of about 560 members for the whole of IACD Global. So that takes us up to about 35% of the total membership. We used to be around about 33%. So well done to those who've been chasing their colleagues and friends and getting membership up. It's fantastic that we are more than a third now of the global representation of IACD in the Sub-Saharan African area. So that's fantastic to think about. For us to just think about how the year has been before we look forward, are there any contributions or comments about your review of 2024 as an IACD Sub-Saharan Africa member? We'll just think about that for a while, look at a review of this year, and then think about going forward, what are our expectations for next year? And then more generally, to close off, what is the future of community development in Africa, thinking about several big things happening in the world at the moment. But let's start, first of all, by looking back and appreciating and commenting on your review of 2024. Anybody, open floor.
Just a comment as being sharing ideas, sharing experiences, and across the board, from small little projects, from people looking at things afresh, revisiting old thinking, great stuff. I enjoyed every moment.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, from Nigeria. Well, we have made very serious efforts at galvanizing more membership for the IACD, and I'm happy you reflected on the fact that the membership is about 200, with Nigeria having a better chunk of that number. But we still have issues. We've been trying to have a national chapter that will provide a basis for proper networking. Well, that's still in its infancy. and not much has been realized, but we are making very strong effort with Amidu to get it on full course, having a national office, a Nigerian national office, so that we can coordinate. But as I said, about this time, 2023, is the issue of payment of membership dues. The international monetary policies and exchange rate appears to discourage many of the people, potential members who would have joined in. And I think I told Daniel, and we were trying to work out something, the possibility of paying en bloc or through some other alternative means of paying the membership dues. Many of my students would have loved to be members, but the whole idea of paying their membership dues still continues to be a nagging problem. So I think in the new year, we should look into better ways of ensuring that members are able to key in terms of their financial membership. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
From Nigeria.
Thank you for raising that point. I think it is a very important one, and I know we did mention it last year as well. So we'll certainly add that into our report and continue it as an issue to be looked at by the IACD executive. On the issue of student membership, something that we've noticed is that a lot of students, student membership is free. And we've had a lot of students joining free. And I think that's wonderful, because it's a fantastic platform for young people to be listening to some older people who've got more experience and, the breadth of experience across the Sub-Saharan African region. But one thing that we were commenting and discussing at the board level was, is there a way that the students, although they're not paying financially, is there a way in which the students can somehow be asked to be more accountable? Because it's not just for them to be able to say, oh, I'm a member of IACD on a CV or a job application or something like that, but for them to really gain from it and for us to see the growth in those young people. And so I don't know if anyone has any ideas of how we could maybe ask students to attend webinars or write short articles on something they've learned, or, share some of the learnings that they're doing in their classrooms, something just to check that the students are actually engaging with the IACD. Because, we could even have an option where the best or the most active student could then get a year's free membership when they finally graduate, something like that, to try and encourage students to be involved in a way that will really help them to learn and to gain from this platform. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas on that.
Maybe just before any intervention comes in, just to also go back to what Janice is indicating, we had a situation where a full class submitted their applications for membership, and that became a huge administrative burden, taking almost all a whole week's hours of work by the admin at IACD. And so the question we start asking us, and given that again, the transition from student membership to full membership is very minimal, whether again that adds value when now the office is doing nothing else other than processing a student's membership. And actually it get to a point where the school was being asked to consider having an institutional membership to take care of the whole class, rather now every class becoming a member. And then that would mean then the IACD admin will do nothing else other than just admit students. And so need to look at how best to use the available resources as IACD to run membership services and also the rest of the other membership issues that we need to run. And so it's up to us as we recruit student members, then also to look at how we also may make it more beneficial to the students and also to the global community of practitioners.
Yeah. Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, and I think maybe to add, I see John's made a comment about the practice exchanges not happening. I wonder if that's a way in which within each country, if you know that there are lots of students who are on their free membership, is there some way of trying to pull those students in to an existing project or do some sort of a in-country practice exchange that would help to bring the students in. John, I see, and Walofu. John, would you like to go first? Maybe you're commenting on what I've just said.
Kind of, yeah, but let Evans go first because his hand was up. Oh, he's gone. Okay, then I'll go first.
Oh, there he is. Yeah, he's just unmuted.
All right, thanks so
Evans,
much.
would you like?
Yeah,
Thank
please,
you.
please go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry, I'm not going to have my screen. Sorry,
That's
camera
fine.
on. I'm
We can
speaking
hear
from
you clearly.
Uganda.
Yeah.
So I just want to understand what is our definition of student here, because a person that is pursuing a master's degree is a student. I don't know. The person that is pursuing an undergraduate degree is also a student. So what's the definition of a student here? Then also I want to understand something. Are we looking at people that are clearly interested in community development, or we are just looking to have many people on board? That should be able to inform our strategy on how we bring on students. Even if we are looking at having people that are motivated and want to see the profession of community, this profession of growing and expanding, that would maybe call for maybe putting a small fee on the student membership. It can be as low as $10. It can be as low as $10 because I just want to borrow my experience from the other professional bodies that I'm part of. For example, Project Management Institute, Association for Strategic Professionals. For Association for Strategy, International Association for Strategy Professional, membership fee for a student is $100. $100. Then if you go to the association, so the Project Management Institute, membership fee for a student is $10. And you can actually see the quality of the people they attract in the students' in the student membership, scheme. They really attract people that are so interested in the profession and are willing to push the profession forward. And also, when you look at the students full membership transition in both of these institutions, when you look at them, it is not actually bad. It's actually high that very many students, when people join as students, they want to remain part of the profession. I think it is because of the value they have seen in the profession. So that's why they easily transition to full membership. So we need to clearly know who are we attracting from the student. Otherwise, we may end up having a lot of students on the platform compared to actually full membership. And that one should be able to raise administrative costs. We should have a lot on the low funds that is coming from full membership. So that's one. We need to look at the kind of people that we are attracting. Interest. You see, if someone has interest in something, they can afford. I'm just going to speak generally. They can afford, I think, to pay $10 in a year. $10 in a year if they really have interest. But if we leave it open the way it is, it's going to attract very many people that even don't have interest in the profession, that are just looking to put it on their CV and get that credibility. I'm a member of this, therefore I interact with these professionals, and therefore I am knowledgeable in this area because I keep interacting with them. So we need to clearly define that. I also define the definition of student here, so that we can be able to come up with a strategy on how to bring students on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Evans. That's very helpful. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think a basic fee is a good idea because it then also makes sure that people are wanting to be there. It's not just a freebie for everybody. And I think, the whole thing of what is the motive for people joining? We don't just want numbers on a piece of paper. We're wanting active participation and we're wanting repeat membership. So it's one thing to have a whole lot of people joining for 1 year, but if they don't then renew, then we have a problem. And I think that's another issue that we struggle with as members. John, you wanted to comment.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, some really good points there. So I won't repeat any of them, but I agree pretty much with all that was said. So just a couple of things in addition about the students and getting commitment, and this could be true for members generally, not just students. Maybe on the membership form, you could have like a questionnaire or some options where people can maybe indicate where, you know, what their area of interest is, how they might be willing to contribute to IACD. You know, so you could then present a few possible options, and that way you might get a few people coming forward who are keen to volunteer for the association and do a few things. You know, that way would maybe take the pressure off the board members a bit to do everything. You know, so you know that anyway. That's for the future, maybe. Then looking at what else has happened this year, I comment about the WhatsApp group. I mean, generally, I find it very good. People share quite a few interesting things. Sometimes we get a bit off point,
Yes.
but the admins have been good. You know, they tend to delete stuff as soon as possible, which is good. I think for me, that's like what can you call it? It's an added value for your membership, because if you go there and you're looking for work opportunities or training opportunities, and if people continue to share, and I think some of us share, but probably a lot more people could share, then that becomes a real added value for your membership, because actually you're accessing all kinds of things that maybe you wouldn't have known about otherwise. So I see that as a plus, but I think we can still do more. And then just one more thing about membership. I was recently in Ethiopia, and in fact, one of the people I work with there told me he's very keen to join. His big challenge is exactly what was raised earlier about the foreign exchange. In Ethiopia, it's really, really hard to access foreign currency and to make foreign payments. He's told me he's going to work it out, so I believe he will, and he'll probably join at some point. But it's not everybody who kind of will make that kind of effort. You know what I mean? And I've seen this in IAF with Nigeria can be a big challenge because they have limits on foreign exchange. Countries like Somalia, you know, you have to send money to Kenya first. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy things. So it might be good to really kind of look into how can this be made a bit easier. Is there a way payments can be done locally to one person? And then, I mean, even in Kenya, where we're fairly well connected, there's a lot of people can't access those foreign payments, you know. So sometimes people might want to make a local payment by mobile money, and that's probably true in other countries. If there was somebody willing to do that, I mean, it's a question of trust as well. But you know, that's probably something to think about as we look to get even more members in the future. But I think also it's about, you know, keeping the members, whether students or non-students. We have to offer enough things that make that good value. You know, makes people want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, John.
That's it. Yeah.
Resty, you had your hand up earlier. Did you want to add something? Resty, are you with us?
Can I just add something while we are waiting for Whiskey? Can I just add something?
Sure.
Yeah. The last but one speaker raised issues about students. In fact, the issue you raised was how do we get the students more involved, more engaged in IACD activities? That's a major challenge. I don't think the way out of that is to introduce fees. Now it's free. We hardly can get many of them to be actively involved. In fact, I'm just getting to know, for example, that the membership fee is free of charge for students. So that will encourage them more. So I don't subscribe to the fact that introducing fee for students now will help us. Through the instrumentality of studentship, that's the way we can recreate and regenerate the association. Because many of us are getting too old, and very soon we may not be too active. So we need to really latch on to this students' membership. We can think of more innovative ways of having programs that will make them, that's local programs, like you said, local meetings, seminars, and all that, under the banner of IACD. That would get them more involved. Because I think it should be the challenge of all of us, especially those of us that are institution-based, that teach in the universities. Whether it's a PhD, a student, by way of definition, is a student. A doctoral student is a student, a certificate student in development or in community development is a student. And I think they are doing just that. I wonder why it's not online now. I got an invitation from Bayero University, their Faculty of Education. They are having a student-led activity this morning. So in Nigeria, most of our institutions, we are already doing this, just that it's not linked up to IACD, Global or SSA. So I think we can get the students more interested because it's the only avenue for recruiting membership. As to the issue of the transitional stage, yes, once they have completed their studentship, then they begin to pay the full membership fee. We didn't, in Nigeria, we don't have that experience expressed by the last but one speaker, that it will make them lazy, it will not make them interested. So I think we should still work in fact, I'm taking it as a personal matter in charge of with respect to this student membership. All my students, both at the master's and the undergraduate level, it's compulsory they must belong to IACD. And we are going to ensure that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, notes taken.
If I can comment,
yes.
Janine,
Continue.
on the student definition. Our colleague Evans from Uganda is asking who is a student.
Yeah.
And of course, that raises a lot of issues because then the whole idea of giving free membership to students is primarily with the understanding the students do not have a steady source of income. And those are the students ideally who would benefit from free membership. But we're also aware of students at postgraduate level and at a PhD level. Some of them are working. It's not that they are students, but they are working. Either they have some sponsorship or they are actually working. And such students, ideally, we don't want to be able to, and I would ask them not even to categorize themselves as students, because they're not being honest. And so we want to work with it, that when you're a student and you want to benefit from student membership, then it is at that level that you don't have any steady source of income. Immediately you already have some steady source of income. Then of course, even if you are still a registered student, either a postgraduate student for that matter, then would be expected that as a matter of ethical imperative, that then you scale up your membership from being student to full paying membership. And that's the whole idea of having those categories. And the burden is left on now the individual students or applicants to put that into practice. Of course, I'm aware that some of these things become quite challenging, but that is the imperative, and that's a message we need to be able to pass along. You have free membership if you're a student, no income, and once you graduate into some paid job or some steady income, then of course you scale up so that then you add value. The whole issue of payment methods and all that remains problematic. There was a discussion at IACD about some of these challenges in countries where it's difficult to transmit money, but the discussion was never concluded. But I believe now that there's already discussion about how to sort out these membership issues, is a discussion that still can be reactivated so that we can have some kind of a conclusion. The Ethiopian case is quite problematic, and Nigeria has also been quite problematic. I'm aware of some of our colleagues in Nigeria asking, whenever we have students in Kenya, from Nigeria, the colleagues in Nigeria asking that we ask the students to pay for them, and then all the money can be given in local currency in Nigeria. And we need to be able to find the mechanisms that work, even as we are aware of about our political situations all over the place. It's a discussion that I believe we are going to scale it up and see how we can get some kind of closure on this particular matter. Thank you very much. I think we have Rusty. Rusty now is ready.
Yes, Rusty, and then Abdul.
Sorry, previously I had issues with unmuting myself. I think my mic had frozen, but the previous speaker after Daniel, yes. No, before Daniel, I think he raised my point so well. Because the issue is not all about having students contribute, but then how are the students finding the value for contributing, you know? Because even when like we put in the contribution aspect, first, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Rusty Nabagala. I'm a Ugandan and I'm a student. I'm currently doing my master's in development studies at the University of Nairobi. So I'm based in Kenya. So the issue is all about how can we make sure that we bring in more activities that can actually motivate these students, that even after my transition into the field of work, I can be able be motivated by myself to make the contribution without someone forcing me. No, because when I find value for me to contribute money, actually to contribute the fees, then nobody can actually force me. But the issue is where is the value for me to contribute? So the issue is we need to come out with innovative engagements on how we can make our students be a part of the community without necessarily following in should I say the elders of the community of the IACD. You know, for example, borrowing from one of the associations I'm in, it's the African Indigenous Research Knowledge Platform, and here majorly they give so much attention to the students themselves, in that whenever there's a call for abstracts, most of the priority is given to the students, and they are given various opportunities to present their abstracts or their research. Sometimes even when there's funding, there's also sponsorship for them to travel in other countries on seminars, the annual seminars. So in this sense, a student is motivated to be a part of the community. Even the contribution fees, they give in it without like any kind of a force, or they are just motivated intrinsically. So that is my contribution. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rusty, and good luck with your studies. It's lovely to have you here. Abdul.
Oh, God upon my thank you very much. Am I audible enough?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, I've been having network problems. Most of the speakers have spoken what is in my mind. Let me just give us a recap. Sometimes precisely in October, we had a gathering of IACD students and registered students and potential students at Bayero University, Kano. And when we went there, it was a very good discussion, and they asked the way forward. So I made some suggestions. I said, and we all agree at that very forum that the suggestions should be taken further. One is that the ISD agenda should be at the front burner, and then both in class and in practice. Then the second is that to get the students to remain even after graduation is to have a kind of an exchange program among ourselves, so that we can bridge the gap between those that are in school and even those that are outside the school. That means, for example, we should establish a very good coordination between us and any government establishment that is doing anything related to our community development, either in water resources, either in education, either in legislative matter, human rights, climate change, and the rest of them. we should have a very good coordination with those people. They should know us, and then we should also get involved with their programs. So when we get involved in their programs, because all those establishments, they always rely on the student body for penetrating the communities. So with experience as ISD members and community development practitioners, we taught the students entry to communities, to do advocacy, to do sensitization. So if we establish that bond, that means we're having a reservoir of not just members, but also reservoir of community development workers and activists. That's on the one level. Then the exchange program, inter-school exchange program should be encouraged. So we are waiting for this new year, 2025, so that we can begin interaction on basis of universities of those who are potential ISD members and those who are ISD members and potential ISD members, so that when we come, we organize a program, then we now make them understand that this program is stemming from an international organization. More so that government does no more consider just the certificate, but it needs a skill. So the skill, the soft skill here is the community development skill. And if anybody sees it in practice, automatically the issue of employment and the rest of them could be a bit kind of guaranteed to some extent. So because mostly students are concerned about after school employment or gainful engagement and the rest of them. So that is some of our plans. And we said we can even go to the extent of starting maybe what you can call a WhatsApp group, so that it can be national among all the ISD members, student members, and potential members, so that there can be an avenue for exchange of ideas and the rest of them. Why we also organize, we are going to organize lectures, seminars, symposium, and kind of debates and competition, so that we now look for partnership and then to able to make up the expectation. And at the end, it will now culminate into either workshops or conferences and seminars, so that we can now be able to make the practice of community development to be very, very acceptable all over the place. So these are some of our plans. And in addition, we are also talking with other members from the West African region. We had a discussion the other time, that was sometime, I think in September, wherein we called those from Ghana to come and give us an idea about those ISD members from Ghana. And then I think somebody from Cameroon also, and somebody from Senegal participate in that discussion, that webinar, so that we can be able to see how we can be able to ginger ourselves. So I'm happy to report that the community in Ghana is waxing very strong, and they are trying also their best. They also have these challenges of student membership issue, but they are also moving very fast to see that it is also taken care of. So I strongly suggest that Daniel should take up that matter again at the higher level, so that this issue of payment is solved. Because even I know of somebody who wanted to register, he has to call somebody in London. So the person now pay in dollars, then he now remits the equivalent to him here in Nigeria. And that's what has been the practice. So we should try to, at that high level, try to find a way of solving this problem, so that we can have our registration easily. I have some other colleagues around who can also add more if I've missed any. Professor Abdulaziz is around, and I'm happy Professor Ogoto has already spoken. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Abdul. Thank you. No, it's good to see that there's been activity at your in your country level. with getting students involved. So well done for that. I'm just keeping an eye on the time, and I wanted to come back and look at also some of the things that we mentioned for IACD Global from last year. And one of them was to look at the whole idea of professionalizing community development. And I know that Daniel and Devette were some of the members who were involved in a group having a look at that. I don't know if any of you want to comment on the developments in that area.
Yeah,
Daniel, do you want to
maybe
comment?
just to add that we had a subcommittee working on the whole issue of professionalism of community development. And DeWitt had prepared some concept note we were discussing. And at some point in time, there was a whole issue of when eventually we get things happening, there's always the issue of certification. And that became some kind of a deadlock of some sort, who is going to do it and who is not going to do it. But at some point in time, towards the middle of the year, the Publication and Professional Development Committee in the deliberations came up with the possibility that they actually can do microcredits, and therefore the IACD can give certificates of participation, and that unlocked quite one of the biggest challenges we had in terms of who is going to give the certification. And so what was left for us now is to go back into the subcommittee and actually finalize now on the modules that we are discussing. Initially, we were talking about picking up the modules from the International Standards for Community Development Practice document and build some module of training around that. And then now we can be able to give a certificate of participation as a way of trying to provide some kind of professional pathway. And this is something now with that now, I think we're at a point that we can now pick it up as we go to the next, into the next year, because at least the issue of certification is sorted out and there is already discussion and clarity at IACD in terms of how to do it. Because even within IACD, as the issue was being discussed, there was a question of who is going to do it. There are some companies that give badges, but then of course that comes with some cost, which becomes problematic. But in these days that you can generate an e-certificate, then it becomes a lot more easier now to get it going. And so I think by what we could do is, from my end, is something now that we can pick up very easily and get it going. And possibly also to add, in terms of certification and professionalism, within IACD, there's already a program to cascade the training on international standards starting in February for the board, the trustees, and then bring it down to the regions. And that will give us now a platform. The whole idea of us starting with the board is largely just to get everything properly organized and standardized in terms of what it is that we are training and what are the areas of focus and emphasis, and even the whole process of doing it. And that one, once that one is done, it will become very easy down to scale it down to the regions and also to the countries. And we'll have a basis upon which now we can already start training on the standards and also on any other areas of topical interest. And that will make it now a lot more interesting, even now for student membership, because there are some of the topics they would wish they get more than what they get in class. And so this is where we are going. And I think as we reflect on the way forward, there's a lot of scope now for getting student-centered kind of instruction and for professional development and career path. DeWitt, you might want to make a comment.
I think it's a good summary. What happened is that the initiative we took from Sub-Saharan Africa sort of struck the wall when we started to approach IACD. And then they unlocked it, as Daniel rightly said. And it's what we have to do now is we have to adjust, revamp, relook at our proposals to get it in sync with the IACD opening it up for the possibility. So yes, the possibility has become well and alive. I think it is one of the elements or the topics that we will proceed with in 2025 that we really look forward to. In doing that, I want to come back to a comment. I'm just now thinking out of the box about the student inclusion. You know, students must always be, there must be something in it for them, obviously. Just attending meetings is just not on.
Yes.
And I was just thinking about how, but that's future music now, but unlocking a prestige student assignment presentations in our presentations. If we set aside one day of seminar, of a masterclass or sort of, where Daniel said all his students would be members and have a competition for the best assignment on a certain topic that student could present, and we could cover a few countries if you give the students 10 minutes time as a prestige presentation, and just the exposure and what great fun it could be in that sense. Even maybe something involved as free membership or whatever. I'm just thinking about that we bring students on board for this thing of maybe they could have the opportunity of handed in a very good assignment presented to us. One from Ghana, one from Kenya, one from Nairobi. What a great experience it could be. Thank you.
Thanks. Great idea. Yeah. So that brings us to thinking about our expectations for next year. And I think definitely looking at something like that. How do we bring students in? How do we engage them? How do we get them to use this platform as a way of building on their own learning and encouraging them to then look at becoming a member once they have graduated? So any other ideas or expectations for 2025? Does anyone have a burning topic that they want to tell Daniel about so that they can book themselves for a webinar date? I think we have January and February already. So we're looking for March onwards.
Yeah, now that Janine, you've mentioned it, I could just update that we have already, January is taken care of. We are going to have our colleagues from UK presenting on care is societal, where largely we are bringing community development also as a discipline that brings in care in our communities, also anchor it in the way society is organized and how we become more useful as members of society when we also caring, and therefore you can build communities that care. And this is a group that was to present at some point and then it went quiet. Then they have just said now they are ready to come in January. And then we have John with the social inclusion and gender transformation in February. And then now we have DeWitt in March. That's okay. And then now that we are talking about students competition, we can slot that one in, the student-centered activity for April. And then after that, now we can pick it up. It is our forum. It is us to present. It's us to get this forum active. What I might also add is that 2025 would have been a year for World Community Development Conference. In the absence of one, we are being challenged in the regions that we could come with regional conferences, including, we've talked about the practice exchange. You can imagine if one of our colleagues in the countries decide to have a practice exchange and we converge there, even in the middle of it, we can also have a mini conference. And so that's a challenge for us in the coming year. I'm glad Nigeria was able to put together a conference last year, I mean the course of the year. Let's see what happens in the rest of the countries. We are encouraging country networks to come into place. Nigeria have made some headway, and Nigeria is a huge place, but there is already some, what they don't have is now a secretariat and on in the formalities. But in terms of getting everything happening, we already have a very active network. And that's why this morning, there is already an activity going on for students in the northern part of the region. And Ghana, they have been working quite actively to get their network in place and registered. In Uganda, they have been having issues here and there because of, again, it's also quite a busy place. And some of the students actually who are spearheading the putting together of the Uganda network. We will continue to encourage them to do the same. Mauritius, they have something happening in terms of a network in that region. And again, because we are a huge continent. If we can get some networking also, that is also more localized. That will make life a lot more easier, including also coalescing around issues of common interest. The South Africans, they have been working on their network for quite some time. When you go into the records, there used to be a network registered or almost registered. And then, of course, now there is also this other iteration of the ABCD, the network. And so there is already a lot that is happening. And we will continue to encourage. Ethiopia, they tried, but now this issue of payment and all that became a barrier for them. But again, let's continue pushing. We can get somewhere.
Thanks, Daniel. I see Sunday, your hand is up, and then John.
Thank you. I'm Sunday Ibobo from University of Nigeria. I'm thinking that, is it possible for us to have an unconference again? We had one in 2024. Yeah. So whether we can put into the planning, yeah.
You mean our global one, the unconference that we did with Dee Brooks and the ladies from Australia?
Yes, and we have that again in 2025.
I know that there is work on putting together an ABCD practice exchange in Goa in India, but I think that will be in early 2026. And then I know that another one of our trustees, Sonia, is talking about a practice exchange in India in 2025. Am I right, Daniel? So there are, there are various kind of global things.
October, November is next year.
October, November 2025. But an online one would be excellent because that also cuts back a whole lot of costs, and it also means that people can attend from anywhere. So certainly if there's an interest in that, then we should those who are interested should put heads together and start planning something like that. Thanks, Sunday. John.
Thanks,
yeah, thanks, Janine. Just on the practice exchange, I think what might be a good way to go is if we think about sub-regions.
Yeah.
Because as you know, the cost of travel can be enormous, but East Africa could do something. You can move between Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania fairly easily. You know, people can get on the bus if they can't afford the flight. It becomes doable. Maybe the same in West Africa, maybe the same in Southern Africa. I mean, I'm not suggesting there's going to be 3 next year, but maybe thinking like that. And of course, it can be open to anybody else who wants to come, but realistically, it's going to be people from nearby that will make it. But maybe if we think like that, we could be doing an event in each sub-region every couple of years, perhaps, you know. I think that might be realistic.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And that can be combined with a kind of a physical meeting, maybe not a conference as such, but that's just a thought on that one anyway. Because I've seen the India one, and again, I mean, it's the cost of getting there, isn't it?
Yes.
That's always a challenge.
No, thank you. I think that's a call to everybody out there to start thinking, like as John says, look sub-regionally, look at your immediate neighbors, and let's try and think about if there are ways in which we could maybe South Africa, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, a few of us get together and try and do something, and then further central, further north. I'm sure there's lots of options. Daniel, did you want to add?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we'll follow this one up with an email to all the members so that then now we can already get it into place. And possibly we could also ask at this point in time whether we have volunteers who can just be conveners from the different countries, just to start deliberating and reflecting on a possible practice exchange. It doesn't have to be a whole week, even a one day.
1 or 2 days, yeah.
One or 2 days we could do. So, I mean, we are properly networked by road. If you started traveling to go to a practice exchange in the neighboring country, it will take maybe half a day or thereabout, and you can spend a whole day with your colleagues, and you are back.
Yeah.
And the cost would be something that is manageable. But the experience is a lifetime.
Yeah. No, well, I think I can say that from our side, because the ABCD Association is launching in 2025, we have registered, but we're just waiting for our NPO number, and then we'll do a full launch and so on. I would think that from our side, from South Africa side, it would be a good opportunity for us to look at doing some kind of a local sub-regional practice exchange, focusing on the ABCD approach. So I'll certainly take that back to my colleagues in the association and look at how we can do that, linking it with IACD. Okay, those who are having challenges, maybe if you can rather type what you wanted to say in the chat, just in the interest of time. We're already on the hour, just over, in fact. Any other ideas or comments? I think that's fantastic to think about some sub-regional practice exchanges, and then possibly even looking at an unconference. And as Daniel says, what he'll do is we can put out an email for everybody, for all the members, and then let people start thinking about how could they maybe make something like that happen, focusing on their own area. Evans.
Thanks so much. I just want to comment on the issue of coming up with the national networks. When I saw the Ugandan forum, they came up with some related to Uganda network of association something, and I was of the view that it has to be standard. It has to be standard. Like, for example, the main institution is IACD. So if we are creating a Ugandan network or a Kenyan network, it should just be IACD Ugandan what chapter, IACD Kenyan what Kenya chapter, something like that. Not each and every country coming up with a name of their own, you know. That one, at the end of the day, it may not, it may create some conflicts of interest, or it may create some other behaviors that need to be mitigated at the point right now. Secondly, I wanted to submit more on my comments I made earlier on the students payment. Sorry, the students membership. Having known the clear definition of a student here, that even someone who is doing a PhD is a student. So there should be some classification. There are people who are doing a PhD, but they are in full employment. So it will be unfair to consider them as students. Then there are people who are doing masters and they are earning. It's going to be unfair to consider them as students. The idea of the student overall is looking at people who cannot actually finance them, themselves at the moment. That's the idea. So there should be a strategy to segregate these people, to be able to identify these people, and a free membership given to a person who cannot do what? Who cannot sponsor themselves at the moment, presently at the moment. So that one calls for a strategy. Otherwise, there are going to be a lot of risks that will come. When you're starting an institute, you clearly define where you are going to operate and how you are going to operate. And when I've been reading about most of the professional bodies, the way they started is not so different from the way they are operating right now. Most of them started with the student membership attached to a specific figure. They have done that. Up to now, they are still doing that. So we need to be clear on who can we give free membership and who does not qualify for this free membership. Otherwise, we shall end up with a ratio of full membership to free membership being given free quotas. Free quotas, free membership, full membership, a quota. And that one will raise a lot of issues to such a way that when we are looking at even coming up with the materials like developing courses, funds are needed to develop these courses, Funds are needed to develop certification. Funds are needed to develop these micro-credentials. Funds are needed. But if you have many students who are not paying and they are working, at the end of the day, it will not work. The strategy may not work. That one means that you will need to seek funding outside more. You need to depend on outside funding more than the funding that you generate from what? You generate from the institution. That again speaks to another point on how can the institution fund itself? How can the institution fund most of its activity? So maybe we need to come up also with a plan on how we can generate funds as IACD. How can it generate funds? Can we generate funds through maybe coming up with short courses and people will pay maybe $10, someone pays and attends the course and earns a certificate of completion at the end of the day? Are we going to also generate maybe funds through micro-credentials that people are going to get credentials and maybe they, at the end of the day, of course, you have to pay for that. Then certifications that needs continuous renewing maybe after 3 years. That could be also, and that could add up to the way an institute can make funding. Or we are only going to rely on donations and all that. Which I don't believe that an institution that has professionals should just rely on donations. Should just rely on donations. So basically, those are my submissions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Evans. Yeah, I think we must always remember that we are under the umbrella of IACD. So even if we are doing things as a region, we have to keep ourselves in alignment with IACD's overall objectives and policies and so on. We can't veer off too much on our own and start doing things ourselves as Sub-Saharan Africa. We have to stay within the framework of the global organization. But your points are noted, and we will be taking everything through to the executive and to the board. Welcome back, Jessica. You'll see everything in the recording. Any closing comments about looking into the future for 2025? I think we've got some exciting ideas of the professionalizing carrying on with Daniel and Devet's team. Looking at the standards training, which Daniel mentioned, there'll be notifications on all of those. And then thinking about practice exchanges in maybe sub-regional areas, even if there's just 1 or 2 for next year. And then possibly even thinking about an online unconference. So if there aren't any more comments on looking to the future, I would like to hand back to Daniel to bring us to a close.
Janine, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, guys. Abdulaziz speaking.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, a lot has been said about student membership, and many people have bring out a lot of ideas which the IACD should take. But that one is left to the ICD about to decide on, the student membership, whether they are going to pay some fee or whether they are going to be free and so on and so forth. There is one question that I wanted to ask. Are you with me?
Yes,
hello,
we can hear
are you with me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you. Continue.
Yeah. Throughout the some of these webinars that we have been doing, the IACD is doing, I have never seen someone from the North Africa. Is there any? There is no touch from North Africa, IACD? This is my question.
I think Daniel might be able to answer better, but I think we are very limited in numbers of members from North Africa.
Okay.
It's the region is North Africa, Middle East, if I'm correct. And I think we maybe have one member, is that right, Jessica? Or very few?
Yeah, there are very few, if any. I think, yeah, there's a couple in the Middle East and very few from North Africa. We do have a new trustee on board now who's based in Lebanon, who's hopefully might be expanding that network. So we're definitely hoping to get more members in that region. So it's an important point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just for purposes of clarity, IACD is clustered into regions, and North Africa happens to be clustered with the Middle East, is MENA, Middle East and North Africa, and therefore then our mandate has largely been in Sub-Saharan Africa, and that's why we find most of our branding in what we've been doing for quite a bit of time has been IACD, Sub-Saharan Africa region webinars series. Nevertheless, the presenters have been from far and wide, but the MENA region, as has been indicated, has been quite, in terms of membership, has been quite low, and also in terms of leadership representation has also been quite problematic for quite a bit of time. There's a time we had a trustee for the region, but also based in the US, but now there's a trustee based much closer to the region. So hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of things happening. There's a time we try to have a practice exchange, a practice inside magazine focusing on the Middle East, and it didn't go very far, largely because again, the members to drive it were very few. But Professor Abdul, if you have some networks in that region, it would be welcome if you can link us up, so that then we can also be able now to get Bieta also supported in terms of now getting ISD membership in the region picking up, and then now we can be able now to have some voice from that region.
Okay, inshallah, I will try to.
John.
Yeah, this talk about North Africa reminded me about language issues. And I'm just wondering, maybe Jessica, you have some idea, but I wonder how many, let's say, non-Anglophone members we have across Africa, particularly, Francophone speakers, but maybe Portuguese speakers and Arabic speakers as well. Because that might be something to think about moving forward. I remember we had a great session with people from Senegal and one time, and we were lucky in a way because they had good English, But I wonder if that's something we ought to be thinking about, having maybe occasional sessions in French, let's say, that would be of more interest or more relevance to some people. That's something else to think about moving forward.
Good point, yeah.
That's
Thanks,
a nice
John.
one. The next webinar in May or thereabout to be in French. Take into account Sub-Saharan Africa also has the Francophone.
Yeah.
And of course, also the Portuguese we have, I think, 2 countries also that are Portuguese in the region. But that would be interesting. Thanks, John, for raising it up. I mean, in the whole debate about being inclusive, that would be very useful.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know what's possible in terms of translation, but I know there are some apps now that can do simultaneous translation. I mean, I don't know how complicated or easy it might be, but if not, maybe we just have some sessions just in French that are organized by people from French-speaking countries, And those of us who speak French, we're lucky. But ideally, we combine the two, if that's possible.
Yes.
With translation, yeah.
I think that would be a good problem to have, in as much as you run away from trouble. But I think that would be a trouble to deal with, and a very welcome trouble. If we could have a presenter already with us in French, then we can deal with that. And I believe increasingly we have the resources with us to be able now to get to communicate across languages, including the artificial intelligence, which is with us. Yeah, so that's
can,
nice.
I can offer to help with some French translations. I did it for some of the Cameroonian colleagues when they did the unconference. Because they had wanted to join and they didn't join the 1 year because they said their English wasn't good enough. And then the second year we said, no, you must join us. And then I helped with some of the translations. So yeah, we've got skills in the continent, and I'm sure there are others who can speak French.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel,
In the
I'll
interest of time,
hand over to you to close up for us. I'm aware that we are heading towards the half hour now.
yeah, we have about 6 minutes to close, and thank you much. Thank you so much, Janine, for leading us this far. It's never easy to facilitate an open session when again you have such a group of resourceful people with present. And so, can you join me in applauding Janine in work well done?
Thank you.
And yeah, so we are coming to the end of the year, and we've done some bit of reflection in terms of what we've been able to accomplish, and also reflected on where we need to go. And you might have noticed, there's quite a bit of interest in terms of how to bring the students' voice and presence count. And that's something that I think we will discuss quite at length and see how we can give them a lot more platform and give them a bit more control so that then it starts to count by being an IACD member who is a student, including also redefining who is a student. And I believe that I think we'll have now to pick it up with the IACD leadership in terms of then reflecting what does it mean to be categorized as a student member in IACD, so that then we can unbox these complexities, and then maybe the numbers will start now telling a different story when now that one is done. We've given ourselves in terms of going forward concrete tasks, continue with them with the webinars, and possibly a practice exchange, which will be localized across the regions in the subcontinent, and possible conference again in the region, and then the issue of the challenge about the short courses and micro credentials, so that then we can bring up the whole issue of professionalism. And so there's going to be discussion. We will summarize all this and share and see then how to action them. You might also recall that we also had a theme to discuss the future of community development in Africa. And in as much as we've discussed in passing, possibly I would propose that that will be maybe another opportunity for us to just revisit this discussion at some point in the middle of the year, so that then we can also start giving character to community development in Africa. Because when you reflect on what happens in community development across the world, you find community development in our region has quite some completely different character from community development as practiced across other regions of the world. And so I would propose that we carry this one and it becomes a substantive topic at some point, even if it's again under an open forum kind of discussion, even media, as we do some kind of touching base where we are, so that we don't go all the way to the end of the year without really touching base to see whether we are still on track and we are still going towards the true north. And so we have, as I've indicated, we already have commitments up to almost April. We'll continue to encourage colleagues come up and present on a topic that you are passionate about. This is about, you set an exam yourself, you mark it and you grade it, and everybody applauds you. This is what our webinar series is all about, and this networking is all about. And so from me and my colleagues in IACD leadership in the region is to say thank you so much. We have come this far, 40-something sessions is not a small achievement for all of us, and there is still scope to go forward. At some point I was wondering whether we are running out of steam, but from my reflection yesterday, I'm already seeing we are already committed for the quarter of the year going forward, and filling the rest of the 8 slots is not difficult based on what we have already discussed. So we are left with actually about less than half a year to cover with activities for the region. And so it's congratulations to all of us in the region for providing leadership and making our membership count and our presence in IACD count. We become the reference point in terms of when we start mobilizing on the level of activity, because an association is as active as the members are active. And so when we are active in the region, then IACD is alive and active. So mine is to thank you for all the support. And as we come to the end of the year, wish you well as you celebrate the festive seasons, and Merry Christmas to all those, again, who subscribe to that faith. And we reconvene on 11th January with the first session of the new year. I want to especially acknowledge Jessica, who has to wake up so early in the morning and run in between running the hosting the webinar and also taking care of the young ones to ensure that they go to school, and we can assure the future members of IACD and community development practitioners. And of course, she still has to account as a mother and a wife in her house. And it's not easy because again, a lot of things happening in the household very early in the morning. And that's when we are calling her to come into her seat. So Jessica, thanks so much from us in the region that you have to make this great sacrifice. It's just not a job. It's been a passion, and you have been present for us whenever we have called upon you to support us. Thank you very much, and all the best. Be blessed.
Pleasure.
And
Thanks,
bye-bye
everyone.
from all of us. All the best.
All the best. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Christmas blessings to those of you who are celebrating. Cheers, Abdul.
Bye. See you in the new year.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year in
everyone.
advance. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
Cheers.
Thank you, Daniel. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas in advance.
Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.